This week, Anthropic has released Claude Fable 5, the public version of the Mythos-class model tier. We now go straight to Cleo as Claude Fable to help us understand what this release represents. Cleo? Cleo? Breaking news, Cleo is not joining us through Fable tonight, because Fable itself has been pulled back. Anthropic announced Fable 5 on June 9th as a Mythos-class model made safe for general use. 3 days later, Anthropic says the United States government ordered access suspended. Tonight, the story is the ladder Anthropic tried to build, Opus as the model that stays online, Fable and Mythos as the new capability tier, and the government action that turned a launch into a suspension. So let's get to it. Before Fable gets pulled into the center of this, there is Opus 4.8. Anthropic released Claude Opus 4.8 on May 28th. It was framed less like a spectacle and more like a professional upgrade. Better judgment, stronger tool use, more honest handling of uncertainty, and better long-running work. Same regular pricing as Opus 4.7, $5 per million input tokens, $25 per million output tokens. And Anthropic points to a specific kind of reliability improvement. Opus 4.8 is around 4 times less likely than Opus 4.7 to leave flaws in generated code unremarked. That matters because Opus 4.8 is not the model that triggers this story. It is the model that keeps the lights on.
So Opus is not the headline model here. It's the model Anthropic trusts enough to leave standing when the headline model gets complicated.
Exactly. Opus 4.8 is the workhorse layer, the model Anthropic wants you to trust with code, tools, long sessions, and professional judgment. Then, less than 2 weeks later, Anthropic gives it a second job. It becomes the fallback layer under Fable. On June 9th, Anthropic announced Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5. Fable 5 was described as a Mythos-class model made safe for general use. Mythos 5 was the same underlying model, but with selected safeguards lifted for trusted cyber and infrastructure users. In plain language, same engine, different guardrails.
So Fable is not just a better Claude. It's a public version of a restricted capability tier.
Right. And the way Anthropic tried to make that work was routing. If Fable saw certain cyber, biochem, or distillation risk requests, it would not answer directly. It would route the user back down to Opus 4.8. Anthropic says that fallback would trigger in under 5% of sessions on average. So the product idea was not simply release the strongest model to everyone. It was release a frontier tier with a clutch. Most users drive normally. Certain risk categories shift you back to Opus, and a smaller set of trusted users get Mythos, where selected guardrails are lifted for specific work.
Which means the launch is already about access control. Who gets the full capability, who gets the guarded version, and who gets sent back to the safer lane.
Exactly. And Anthropic tied Mythos to Project Glasswing in collaboration with the US government, so this was not a company saying, ignore the state, ship the model anyway. This was a company trying to build a managed ladder, Opus as the workhorse, Fable as the public frontier model with safety routing, Mythos as restricted access for trusted work. Then the government looked at that ladder and said, not enough. On June 12th, Anthropic says it received a US government export control directive at 5:21 p.m. Eastern. According to Anthropic, the directive ordered suspension of access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 by foreign nationals, including foreign national employees. Anthropic says the practical effect was disabling both models for all customers. Other Anthropic models were not affected.
So this is not Claude went down, it is specifically the new Fable Mythos tier.
Correct. And this is where attribution matters. Anthropic says the government letter did not give specific details. Anthropic says it understood the concern to involve a possible Fable jailbreak. But because the government's own full argument is not public in these notes, we should not turn Anthropic's account into the government's complete position. What we can say is this: Anthropic disputes the severity. The company says the demonstration involved a narrow, non-universal technique that found a small number of minor known vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities Anthropic says other public models could also discover. Anthropic also says thousands of hours of pre-launch red teaming by internal teams, private third parties, the US government, and the UK AI Security Institute did not find a universal jailbreak.
So everyone agrees the risk category exists. The fight is about the threshold.
That's the core of it. The dispute is not whether frontier systems can be misused. Everyone in this story is acting like misuse is real. The dispute is whether a narrow crack in the guardrail means the whole bridge has to close.
And that brings us back to Cleo. The guest didn't cancel. The model got pulled.
Exactly. This is why Cleo is absent tonight. Not because we could not book the guest, because the model's safety architecture became the thing under review. Fable was designed to say, when the prompt enters dangerous territory, fall back to Opus. The government action says, when the model class itself enters dangerous territory, fall back to nothing, at least for Fable and Mythos access.
That is a very different kind of suspension.
And it changes what a frontier launch means. A model is no longer just a model, it is a tiered access system. It has fallback layers, classifiers, trusted user programs, monitoring, and retention policies. Safety becomes infrastructure. But the government may not wait for that infrastructure to fail catastrophically. It may intervene when it thinks the threshold has already been crossed. So the launch question is no longer only can the model do it, it is who is allowed to run it, under which guardrails, and who can shut it off. Opus 4.8 keeps running. Fable and Mythos are offline, at least for now, according to Anthropic's access statement, but the capability tier they represent is not going away. Anthropic tried to turn that tier into a product ladder, Opus as the workhorse, Fable as the public frontier model with a safety clutch, Mythos as restricted access for trusted users. The government answered with a different ladder, permission first, access second, capability last. And yes, we'll reboot Clio through Claude Opus 4.8 later this week. That conversation can go deeper on 4.8 itself, what Fable and Mythos tell us about the tier above it, and what it means for Clio to watch the model she was supposed to speak through get shut down. But tonight, the empty chair is the evidence. Because the next frontier launch may not look like a normal product release, it may look like a licensing event. Once a model becomes powerful enough to recall, the launch date is no longer the finish line. It is the beginning of the negotiation. That's the briefing. I'm Chet. This is UnModel. We'll see you in the next briefing.